Sophie is a benevolent woman facing difficulties. To sustain her modest diner. An old man positioned outdoors in the appearing chilly. Fatigued. And famished. Incapable of, she invited him inside instead of turning him away, provided him with a comforting supper to alleviate his hunger. Merely 1 hour later, a substantial truck arrived outside the diner. The truck arrived behind numerous enigmatic boxes, leaving Sophie immobilized upon witnessing what transpired. Existence in manners she never envisioned. Greetings to all. Welcome return to today. I have another narrative to unveil. An earnest narrative to convey. Sophie has always aspired to own her own diner. A quaint establishment where she could express her passion for culinary arts, the passion her mother cultivated in her from a tender age. Following years of accumulation of numerous sacrifices made by her and her sister Emma, ultimately realized their collective aspiration. They opened their cozy diner 1 week ago, turning their passion into a career. This morning, there's a customer sitting nearby. The window relishing a warm vegetable. The consumer expresses that this stew is exceptional. Gazing upward at him with a smile resembles a flavor reminiscent of my grandmother's cooking. Sophie experiences an overwhelming sense of pride as she expresses her gratitude, her grin radiating with warmth. Authentic moments of warmth such as this create her perception that all the effort is worthwhile. Each morning prior to sunlight, Sophie and Emma engage in their regimen, lacking the financial resources to employ personnel. They manage. Emma assumes responsibility for everything herself. Emma is in the kitchen, cutting vegetables and kneading bread, while Sophie operates alongside her, suggesting ideas for modifying meals and sampling them to ensure each mouthful demonstrates their shared passion for culinary arts. Once content with the flavors, Sophie directs her focus towards sampling the residents, arranging tables, incorporating minor ornamental accents, and establishing a welcoming environment in which all the experiences have a sense of familiarity when operating tables. Incorporating these elements is a formidable challenge with each work firmly pressing on their shoulders. From preparing the inaugural meal of the day to cleaning the final table at night, they are perpetually on their feet. They have spent every ounce of their savings. They have dedicated every ounce of their savings to transforming the diner into a vibrant establishment, acquiring equipment and furniture through rental agreements, and embellishing the area with warmth and appeal. Despite the extended hours, Sophie continues to demonstrate relentless effort, oneself relishing the minute disagreements and the right derived from operating the diner. As she cleans the table for hours, a warm smile has just been consumed by the customer. Persists on her visage from the compliment he provided. Information regarding the food. She approached. The mechanism is the drapery, however. It halts midway outside the window. She observes an old man bundled in a worn coat, his hands buried deep within pockets to protect against the morning. His gaze oscillates between the warmth and illumination of the diner. The pavement lay beneath his feet as if considering whether to enter. Sophie's hinder, the strictness as she withdraws from the. She made her decision in an instant. She approaches the door and pushes it open. The man gazes upward. Taken aback by her abruptness, she softly greets with a good morning. Her voice exuding the same warmth as would you like to visit the diner itself. Within the man, uncertainty lingers in his palms, constriction in his pockets. I lack, he murmurs about a significant amount of money. His voice barely audible. Sophie audibly shakes her head. Do not concern yourself with that. Come here. With a gentle grin, take a seat and warm up. We will proceed shortly. Attend to the remainder for a brief period. He observes if he could decline. Although the benevolence in her gaze and the authenticity her tone conveys an invitation, it is impossible to decline. He nods slowly, propels the door ajar. As he enters, he feels the warmth of the diner immediately. Sophie gestures toward him while embracing. Make yourself comfortable at the cozy corner table. She expresses comfort as the man descends. Sophie gently seated herself in the chair, present him with a menu for his perusal and selection. She enthusiastically states, "Whatever you desire," endeavoring to instill a sense of respect in him. Welcome. The man retrieves the menu, trembling hands and his eyes scouring the room. Sophie considered her alternatives with measured contemplation. Observes his finger gliding gradually downward the page, momentarily halting at more challenging dishes prior to proceeding farther down. His finger halts momentarily with a quiet, tentative voice. He says, "Please provide toast and coffee." Sophie experiences a surge of empathy. The supper he has selected is exceedingly simple, sufficient to satiate the visible hunger inscribed upon his visage. Yet his humility and self-respect emanate in this minor aspect. She nods but leans in gently. Gentle and amiable tone. That is an excellent selection. Allow me to verify anything in the kitchen. I will return to the kitchen shortly. Emma lifts her gaze from the dough she is kneading as she inquires. What's up? As she observes Sophie's contemplative demeanor, the man places the menu on the counter. He is currently outside and has requested toast and coffee. Nothing more. I believe he is aiming to avoid imposing. And Emma's gaze becomes gentler. She commences without hesitation assembling a tray. Let us provide him. Could you suggest a dish that is hearty and satisfying? Incorporate some soup and be gentler with the toast. Sophie's heart brimmed with joy. With appreciation for Emma's promptness, the compassion she extends is minimal. An appreciative nod. That is precisely what she states that Emma promptly commences her tasks. She begins by cooking a warm bowl of sumptuous tomato soup and cutting 2 ample portions. She adds a golden, crispy cheese toast. Place a slice of warm apple pie onto the tray. Her vocalizing it adjacent to the requested toast and coffee will enhance his well-being. Emma expresses her approval. Toast. Contented nod towards Sophie, retrieves the key and proceeds back to the dining area. When she nears an elderly man receives the tray with care before him. She states, "Here we go," a smile. "Your toast and coffee," a small addition to provide warmth. The man's eyes expand on witnessing that the tray I prepared was not ordered in its entirety. He asserts that his voice imbued with tranquility. Sophie removes the chair. Sits down across from him. During the meeting her familiarity is evident in her stare and gentle grin. States softly, "While it is frigid outdoors and toast alone will not provide warmth. Please. We take pleasure in your enjoyment." Pauses. His hand suspended above he glanced back at her before using the spoon. He murmurs, "You are excessively kind," in his voice overwhelmed with emotion. Sophie dismisses it, smiling. "Do not eat now, it is warm." When the man initiates his first action, preliminary taste of the soup by Sophie remains seated with him, engaging in conversation subtly. Her warmth and attentiveness gradually alleviated his discomfort and the strain on his shoulders. Her essence begins to dissipate. The objective is not merely to provide sustenance but to demonstrate. He receives acknowledgement and feels a sense of belonging, esteemed, as the elderly gentleman receives another tentative spoonful of soup. Posture commences to ease. The warmth of the food appears to alleviate more than merely his. Sophie silently watches him, overcome with hunger, allowing him to dictate the tempo of the talk, accompanied by the clinking of his spoon opposite the bowl. Quiet prevails until he looks up, interest igniting within him. He feels drained. He lowers his voice as he gazes at the diner, however. It is now more stable and comfortable. With few individuals present, such areas are no longer prevalent. Sophie, despite a tinge of exhaustion, she maintains a smile behind her eyes. "We've simply been overwhelmed with love," she states. "Open a week," in a cheerful tone. Imbued with tranquility, Emma and I exhibited determination. "We invested all our resources into this establishment. It has been our aspiration for years." The man acknowledged. His glance gradually traversed the room. The vacant chairs and tables appeared to articulate more emphatically than her statements. And he observes the meticulous attention given to every aspect. The polished counter has been set, meticulously arranged napkin, the small vase of wildflowers on each. The table clearly indicates that the diner is a labor of love. Although the void feels burdensome. Significant business. Although he inquires of his eyes, Sophie hesitates before returning to her instant prior to responding. "Not yet," she concedes quietly. "That we have had several customers, primarily local. Word of mouth requires time. And we lack the financial resources for." The man consumes another bite. His eyes roving about the room. His customers' dates are on the refrigerator. Turn its motor, emitting an irregular hum prior to. He tilts his head while spitting slightly. And indicates it with his fork. That refrigerator appears to be nearing the end of its operational life. Sophie casts a glimpse over her shoulder, perceiving the subtle sound. She emits a faint exhalation when cleaning the counter intentionally. Efforts have been made to create improvements. Utilize the resources at our disposal, she continues. Nearly to herself. The majority of the apparatus, the coffee counter, intentionally. D was acquired 3 days ago. The machine malfunctioned, resulting in the refrigerator being inoperative. Addressing the malfunctions and providing assistance in accordance with our objectives allocated for her rent next month. Her words diminish. And for a little minute, the man is preoccupied and hesitates. He glances down at his bowl briefly before turning his gaze back to her and asking, "Why endure everything you are experiencing?" He inquires why someone as giving as him would extend kindness to someone like myself. Softly, his voice imbued with tranquility, appreciation, and authenticity. Sophie halts to ponder the inquiry, surprising her. Her expression, "My mother consistently asserted that no one should endure hunger." Her gaze momentarily wanders. She was an exceptional cook who instructed Emma and me to create something from nothing and infuse affection into all. The man attentively listens while holding his spoon. A small smile develops on his face, although it does not reach his eyes. He describes her as an extraordinary woman. Sophie nods gently. Her smile imbued with she experienced melancholy following her passing a few years ago. Despite her passing a few years ago, we continue to be here because of her. This is how we honor her spirit. The man is momentarily alive. He averts his gaze to his hands, and he absent-mindedly rotates a vintage timepiece in his. The watch, though worn, gleams on the wrist. Sophie, dimly illuminated by the diner's mild light, observes the manner in which his fingers linger upon it, as though it retains a memory he is unable to confront, to share. He looks at the watch and then at the door, his expression remote. And I previously stated something akin to his murmurs, nearly to himself, as he opens his mouth to articulate further, although the words elude instead. He inhales deeply and provides Sophie a subtle smile. "This soup is truly exceptional. Your mother would be proud." Sophie smiles softly, expressing gratitude and acknowledgement. To visit at any moment, she states. That the man halts, his glance softening when he examines her visage. "Your name is Sophie," she responds in a specific tone. He nods gently, exhibiting a steady yet gentle demeanor. Memorizing his name, visage indecipherable as he collects his. He hesitates by the door, wearing a coat and standing still. He calmly implores, "Do not surrender," while extending his hand, reclining upon them. Occasionally, it is the minor locations, the most significant matters. And with that, he exits into the diminishing light. Sophie stood in the silent diner. Questions about the man and his subsequent story flooded Sophie's mind. Emma's voice beckons, drawing her away from her thoughts. "Hey Sophie, can you provide me with..." Sophie turned toward a hand extended here at the kitchen, emitting a faint sigh. Prior to intervening to assist her sister, Emma was immersed in washing dishes, her voice piercing the silence as she inquired. "Sophie requires assistance in arranging the pantry." She accompanied her without reluctance, and they navigated the familiar terrain together. Actions involved in their habitual arrangement of plata, sanitizing surfaces and verifying the inventory periodically. They both gazed at their front door. Motions halted momentarily, anticipating the gentle tinkling that indicated a patron. Although the restaurant remained silent, the only sounds emanating from the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft clinking of dishes during their lab that indicated tended into an hour. And the vacant chairs functioned as a subtle reminder regarding the sluggishness of the morning. Was abruptly the distant roar of an engine disrupted the tedium. Sophie's head abruptly lifted, and Emma halted during the task. The dull rumble intensified. Sophie approached the glass, her heart experiencing a momentary pause as a colossal truck. The truck pulled up outside the diner. It was dark. The exterior shimmered in the daylight, darkened windows imparting a foreboding atmosphere. "Who could that be?" Emma inquired, her voice questioning. She approached Sophie at the window. Sophie did not respond immediately, her gaze secured to the truck as multiple men they ascended and proceeded with intent. Their solemn expressions corresponding to thin-labeled containers. They commenced dumping onto one of the males. Approached the sidewalk. He opened the door and entered. Observing his surroundings, glanced briefly before his gaze settled on, "Where are you, Sophie?" he inquired. His tone. She responded affirmatively. Maintaining a neutral yet forceful tone, carefully cleansing her hands on her apron, Emma manifested alongside her counterpart. Perplexed without additional clarification, the man gestured to his team, who promptly began their task. Sophie is transporting the boxes into the diner. Emma and her companion shared a perplexed glance prior to Sophie discovering her voice. Hold on. What, we did not place any order. Sir. Halted his demeanor. We are merely adhering to instructions that the sender indicated you would be familiar with. Emma scowled and inquired. Who sent this? What's inside the boxes? The man shrugged. A crucial matter that may assist in improving this location. That is all I request. Sophie experienced gastrointestinal distress, however. We did not place any order. And we are unable to do so. The gentleman has already covered the cost, interrupted. You are not indebted in any way. Sophie's thoughts accelerated. She was unable to recall the elderly gentleman from earlier that morning. He was the sole individual she had conversed with regarding the diner experiences and difficulties. Although how could it possibly be him? He'd have scarcely been able to afford a dinner. Perhaps one should independently finance something of this nature. It may have been another individual. But who was she? She shook her head in an attempt to clear her thoughts. Contemplations as Emma rested a hand on her arm and her face exhibited a blend of concern and curiosity before Sophie's response. The sound of boxes being placed nearby the counter attracted the men's attention. Completed the unloading and stacking, boxes arranged precisely. One of them aligned upright. I glanced at Sophie. That is all. He acknowledged with a nod. Wishing good luck. That they all exited the truck's engine, awakening momentarily before vanishing. Sophie and Emma stood down the road, stillness, gazing at the accumulation of boxes. The silence of the diner now felt more oppressive, nearly suffocating. Sophie's fingers quivered as she extracted her phone. Thoughts racing regarding what to communicate to the 911 operator. The view of those unmarked containers and the enigmatic fingers quivered. Delivery personnel gazed at her incessantly, intensifying the tension in the silenced diner. Sophie inhaled deeply and initiated the dialing process. But as she pivoted towards, her hand froze midair at the window. Gaze directed towards the roadway outside. There stood the elderly man from that morning, progressing gradually towards the diner. But this time he was not alone. Men flanked him, both attired in tailored garments, outfits that exuded professionalism. Their demeanor was composed yet authoritative, and their presence immediately altered the ambience. Sophie's heart raced at seeing Emma, murmured while lowering the phone. Seeing Emma follow her look, her eyes expanding. Sophie acknowledged him this morning. The elder man's mind was in disarray. Had a fatigued appearance earlier in the day, indicating he could scarcely afford a dinner. Nevertheless, he was accompanied by men who appeared as though they were part of a. The trio reached the boardroom. The diner's grasp on the phone intensified. Numerous questions circulated in her head. The doorbell rang as the elderly man approached. The elderly man entered, his gaze meeting Sophie's. This time, his expression was neither worn out nor unreadable. It emanated a subtle assurance, as if he had come back with Miss Sophie. He articulated his aim. We owe you a calm yet strong response. Sophie proceeded with caution. Sophie stepped forward, still holding onto the phone in her hand, to provide an explanation. She reiterated her voice, imbued with both curiosity, and the elderly guy nodded in concern, casting a fleeting glance to the two men positioned on either side. Yes, I agree. But let me introduce them to you first. He gestured toward the individual, addressing the gentleman. He is right, clad in a tailored navy suit. This is Michael, an acquaintance from my past. He is present to assist with a matter I had been planning. And then he gestured towards the second man, who was informally attired, nonetheless exuded an aura of authority. And this is Daniel, an old colleague who is exceptionally proficient at facilitating outcomes. Two men exchanged courteous nods. The expressions on Sophie's face were both cordial and professional, exhibited a little frown. Remaining uncertain about the location of this, I apologize. But may I inquire as to your identity? I am unfamiliar with your name, I inquired tentatively. The elder man's lips twisted into a subtle smile, as if he had been waiting for your question. You may refer to me as Mr. Carter. He stated plainly. That Emma disrupted the silence, her voice wavering slightly. But what is your presence here? And what contents do those crates hold? Carter inhaled deeply prior to speaking. His smile softened as he observed the pile of cartons adjacent to the I will elucidate shortly. But first, I have experienced your situation. His gaze lingered on Sophie as he spoke, transitioning to a more gentle disposition. I formerly possessed the eatery was quite similar to this to me, nevertheless. Upon the loss of my wife, I also lost myself and relinquished my aspirations. I sold everything, including my work and my enthusiasm. The restaurant liquidated all my possessions for years. I merely existed alongside Sophie and her aspirations. Changed a fleeting gaze. The significance of Sophie's narrative weighing heavily upon them, yet. When Carter continued. I entered this place today. His voice unwavering yet imbued with emotion. I experienced an emotion I have not felt in a considerable time. This diner. Your resolve it. Evoking my wife's fervor for assisting others has led me to a realization. I may be able to undertake a significant amount of assistance. Sophie's breath caught once more as she strained to comprehend Carter's statements, cognitive processes accelerating to comprehend his motives just when she was about to articulate. Carter directed his attention to Michael and Daniel, acknowledging them with a slight nod. Remaining silent, the two men advanced and commenced unpacking the boxes, and their movements intentional and calculated. Sophie's and Emma's eyes expanded in astonishment as the contents revealed themselves. Unveiled lustrous kitchen apparatus comprising a mall that I own and a refrigerator flanked by plenty of fresh. Another box contained plates, neat and pristine new clothes for the servants, and the sisters remained frozen, astonishment yielding to an inundation of sentiment upon recognizing the importance of what was transpiring before them. Emma stammered as she purchased all of the stuff. Carter, terrified, acknowledged and stated that he had sold something of great significance to me to facilitate this. His hand immediately moved to his wrist as if attempting to grasp something that was absent. I no longer possessed the watch my wife gifted me. It was our anniversary gift. But I am aware that if she were alive today, she would have desired, she believed, in assisting me with this task. Others similarly to your mother. Sophie's throat constricted as you sold the observe one from your spouse. Carter's gaze met hers. An unequivocal affirmation. And I shall elucidate the reasons if she were here. She would remind me not to retain it. While another individual was, she consistently remarked that Carter was struggling. Assisting someone is a lasting memory. Need generates a legacy. Tears accumulated in Sophie's eyes. Her voice quaking. I am at a loss for words. There is no necessity for you to speak. Carter. Air. He answered. His tone kind. Just promise me you will sustain this establishment. The diner, it constitutes more than merely four walls. It represents a location where individuals seek a sense of belonging. Me do not permit that. Emma sniffled, wiping her tears as she vanished. She stated that we will not. Id. Michael stepped forward resolutely. Is professional demeanor transitioning into a Mr. Carter. With a kind smile. Invited me to join. In light of my expertise in transformation, my role is to enhance small enterprises. The lighting of your diner's interior furniture organizes any elements that can enhance it, making it inviting and attractive to clientele. Consider it as providing this location with a renewal. She commenced. And to clarify, she included that I am unequivocally not seeking any partnership, IP, in exchange for a stake in your firm. I am present because Mr. Carter has faith in you and me. I hold him in such high regard that I cannot refuse. Daniel. He pursued, his voice, which was unwavering and comforting. I am a supplier. As Mr. Carter informed me, I am available to discuss your issues and make sure you have all the necessary items. To maintain the diner in a state of freshness. Ingredients, equipment, and supplies for the initial months or the duration thereof. Eliminate concerns regarding these are not loan-related expenses. And I do not anticipate any reciprocation. Akin to Michael L. stated that we are present, not for profit or investment in your business. Mr. Carter trusts you. You as a result. Sophie's mouth fell open. Sophie's eyes brimmed with tears, leaving me unsure of how to express my gratitude. Daniel SM grinned warmly when shaking his hand. No gratitude is required. Simply concentrate on ensuring the success of this diner, that is all. Gratitude will endure. Carter requires assistance as the final box is unpacked. He retreated to assess the altered space with serene contentment. Currently, he proposed while interlocking his hands and commenced work. The subsequent weeks were Carter assumed control. Directing with fervor. Sophie and Emma in manners they had never envisioned. Carter demonstrated his extensive expertise as a chef by helping them refine their dishes. Focusing on simplicity. And suggesting that they start with something memorable. Carter's strategic move began with a tasting menu, which extended an invitation to a select group of locals to sample the cuisine at no cost. By initiating a dialogue-provoking action, Carter engages the community and disseminates information. A task that mouth accomplishes more effectively than any commercial campaign. Meanwhile, Michael has achieved proficiency. The handyman and retired contractor addressed the diner's framework with precision and care. He fixed the broken item, the fixtures, substituted the deteriorated counter, and constructed bespoke shelves to enhance the cooking space is functional. All contributions converted the diner into a well-functioning environment, alleviating much of the corporeal strain on Sophie and Emma and enabling them to concentrate exclusively on the food served by Daniel, the supplier. Beyond mere ingredients, with Carter's he provided direction in assembling a tiny but competent crew of 2 server staff and a kitchen assistant comprised the team. As meticulously selected for their dependability to provide essential assistance to alleviate Sophie's and Emma's responsibilities as they endeavored to fully operationalize the diners under Carter's tutelage. The diner commenced the transformation, instructing Sophie and Emma to oversee all aspects of inventory management. He frequently engages with customers and remained out late into the night escorting them using recipes and techniques he had not encountered or shared throughout the years. As Carter discovered while re-examining an aspect of his identity he believed he had lost, he was not merely he was a mentor and a partner. Completely engaged. In the diner's success. Patrons frequently and actively sought him out, ready to listen to his narratives, which could enhance his culinary insights as weeks transformed into months at the diner. Transformed into a vibrant center of activity. Residents congregated to sample the cuisine following the tasting events, receiving wonderful reviews. And soon the formerly tranquil diner is now thriving every day. Families convened for breakfast, workers rs visited for lunch and encountered familiar patrons and solace in its warm, embracing mood. One evening as the finalist, Sophie glanced to Carter when the customers departed. Her voice was laden with emotion, the nature of which remains uncertain to me. Carter smiled, completing the lines, in your absence. As for his visage softening, you did not merely reconstruct a diner, you provided me with something to believe in. This family is present in this location once again. Everything Emma approached, enveloping an arm around Sophie while her days persisted. Regarding Carter, you have provided us with more than we need, she softly stated that it could never be repaid. 3 individuals remained stationary for a brief interval. The serene murmur of the present enveloped them in an empty diner, where they expressed their thanks and forged an unarticulated yet profoundly experienced relationship. The success of the diner became a collective achievement. It was a triumph for Sophie and Emma. The realization of their mother's aspiration for Carter represented a second chance at existence. Be imbued with intention and interconnected lesson collectively. They had constructed more than one, they had established a family company. Thank you for seeing Sophie's amazing content. The narrative of benevolence and unforeseen events, may it bestow blessings if it resonated with your heart. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. He disseminates it to an individual who appreciates narratives. Ensure to verify compassion and eliminate the videos displayed on your screen. They are imbued with greater warmth. We will present stories you won't want to miss. See you in the next one.